Hello, hi, welcome back to my channel, friends. My name is Rachel, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. So I have to film today. It is after work. I've had this makeup on for 8+ hours. It's not too bad, but I do want to touch up where my redness is starting to peek through a little under the eyes, and maybe even touch up some of the liner. Basically just refresh my face because I do need to film a couple of videos after this. Also, the space buns started out okay. This one, she got quirky as the day went on. That's all right. So I'm going to show you how I would touch up my makeup really quick, and I will show you close-up texture. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Okay, so first things first, I do want to kind of re-wet my face just to get some moisture back into the dry spots before we go in and add more creams on top so that the layers don't look too crazy. And I'm not going to add any more foundation. I'm just going to use concealer to touch up my base, and then we'll go back in with the color products. And today I just used the Hindash Colorfluids. I actually used these four for everything outside of my brows and my base. So we'll touch into those, but I'm going to grab a facial spray first. Any facial spray that's hydrating will do. I actually want to use the Fitglow over MAC Fix Plus just because this is a little bit more moisturizing for me. And I'm going to give that kind of a healthy dose. I'm also going to tuck my hair just to get out of the way for right now. And while I still have some moisture on my face, I'm going to add the concealer just where I want to touch up a bit. And this is another reason why I tend to use very light powders, because if I want to add a little bit more coverage or color products on top, I can do that without feeling like it's going to make everything look real crazy. And I'm very limited on brushes right now. So I'm going to use this Sephora VIB Rouge gift. It's the Pro Mini Flawless Airbrush. And I'm just going to use that to pat that in. And that moisture is just going to help it not look so dry and cakey if you have dry skin. Depending on what foundation you're using, it might tend to look a little dry. I will say I'm wearing the L'Oreal True Match today, and I'm noticing that it does tend to be just a bit drier than the NARS foundation. And if you're really dry and you find yourself having to touch up and you don't like how the texture looks, I really love the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel foundation. That one kind of stays hydrating throughout the day and doesn't really dry out on my skin. This is probably going to look a little bit more textured than I like, but we might be able to remedy that with some blurring powders. So I'm just going to blend up under my blush just to make sure that all looks blended, and around the nose. Really, we kind of hit the center of the face and under the eyes, and you don't want to leave it here. What I was saying, my phone better not be losing footage because I filmed this entire look earlier today and I lost more than half the footage, so absolutely not. But here is a texture shot. It's not looking too bad, and that's a mixture of the hydrating concealer with the facial spray technique. The powder we're going to use next is going to help blur it a bit, and that is the Westman Atelier powder. An alternative to this would be Well People. I do love this Wet n Wild 5-in-1 Essence Primer and Finish powder, but it is heavier and I have to be a little bit more careful. With the Westman Atelier, I can kind of dig into it. And that facial spray has dried as I've kind of blended in my concealer. So now I'm just going to touch the areas I don't want to be oily or that I want to set down a little bit, which is under my eyes, around my nose, and my chin. Maybe a little in between the eyes. So that definitely helped us out a bit. And then I do want to add a little bit more color to my cheeks, and I did play artist because I did pick up the Hindash palette and the new shade in Canvas for, I think it was Memorial Day or Mother's Day. I think Mother's Day because it was very recently. And I do like the palette, but for the sake of being quick, I'm going to do a full scoop of Canvas, a half scoop of Rising, which is the orangey coral shade. I'm going to mix that around because it really mutes down the Rising shade in a really lovely way, and I really enjoyed wearing that today. So there's Rising on its own, and there's muted down with some Canvas. You could even add a little bit of the Heartist pink shade or some of the Thorn or Carve, which are the brown shades, if you wanted to kind of mute it down with a deeper skin tone, or if you were looking for more chocolatey version of what I'm putting on right now. So I like to do this, especially after I've added the concealer, because I don't want it to be apparent that I did the concealer last. It just kind of helps blend all the edges in together. And we're looking quite blushed. And I do want to add a little bit of Carve because I did use that as my bronzer today, just to help balance out the bottom half of that. And again, because I use a lot of liquids and creams. Oh, I just grabbed Thorn. That is not my bronzer shade. Because I use a very light powder and I use a lot of creams and liquids, I go in with the same type of product. So these were liquids that dried down. I know that it's not going to build up too many different textures because the product had already dried down, and it's going to dry down a little bit more. So I'm going to add that kind of underneath, and you could do the bronzer first, but we're going to blend them together to the point where it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to blend that in, kind of bring it up to my temples. I will say the one place that I don't have a plan for is my mascara. I've always struggled with that, which is why I feel like a lot of people didn't understand the purpose of MAC's dry shampoo mascara. And I'm going to take my foundation brush that I haven't used in a while, doesn't have any product, and just try to blend the edges out a little bit because we did go a little heavy. I get excited when I'm mixing my colors. Love that. And then just make sure I don't get blush. I tend to sometimes drag my blush down right here, which as I'm getting older and I'm starting to develop a jowl shape is not the most flattering. So I like to kind of make sure that that's blended out and still bright. Much better. What I was getting at is the dry shampoo from MAC, I think, makes total sense if you're someone who wears makeup to like a desk job or whatever job you have, and you work 8 hours and you want to freshen it up at some point and you want to look like you just applied. Mascara does tend to fall throughout the day or just start to look a little crunchy and sparse, and I would love to have that, but I typically am not needing to do that because by the end of my work day, I like to remove all of that and get into my zen time, if that makes sense. So instead of going in with all brow products, I'm just going to touch up with a little bit of tinted gel. I'm using the Merit 1980 brow gel. And honestly, the last thing that we need to do are lips and eyes. So the eyes held up really well. I have the Carve color fluid in the crease, the Thorn shade as my liner, and then I did use Canvas in the inner corner and across the inner third of the lid to brighten it. And I really like how it turned out. What I want to do to touch this up is just use a bit of Thorn again, that deep chocolate brown, on a liner brush, which I wish the footage would have made it, because I'm doing it with a Katie Jane Hughes brush that I typically don't use, and this is the Spectrum Katie Jane Hughes 24. It's a very, very long brush, which is great for flicking, but it is not great for getting a thicker wing, which is what I use, and getting it precise, but we're going to do our best here. And I'm really just going over that for any place that it looks like it was getting a little bit light. So just kind of darkening that line again. So you can see on this one, towards the lash line and the wing, it's starting to rub off just a little bit, which for 8+ hours, I'm not mad at. It doesn't claim to be like a waterproof, life-proof situation. And I'm just going to fill in the areas that look a little light. And again, these were not my best wings. See, just a little bit more darkness, which I'm going to add a touch more, it seems, right there. And let that dry. These were not my best wings because this brush is very, very different. Okay, now for lips. I want to bring the Rising shade onto my lips, but I have not been reapplying chapstick and I am dry and cracked and unhappy. So I'm going to use the Me Love Cookies lip scrub, and this would be good if you had lipstick on from earlier in the day and you wanted to switch to something different. Just to give it a good scrub. Get everything off that was there before, the dead skin that accumulated throughout the day if you dried out like I did. And I'm just going to now wipe this off. Okay, we are scrubbed. Now, because I'm using more of a matte dry down formula, and don't do this if you're using this on other people, but I don't use this on other people, so I'm going to go straight into my lips. I love it. This applicator is very nice for the lips, I will say, but because it's so bright, I'm just going to blend with my finger. You could get a fairly precise line with this if you wanted, but I don't want to be bothered today. So I'm just going to blend it like that. It's a little bit of a blurred lip moment. Then because I am dry and these can be a little sticky as they dry down, a little dry once they dry down and uncomfortable. Listen, that doesn't mean it's a bad product. You either can handle matte formulas on your lips or you can't. I'm typically not someone who does. I'm going to top with a lip oil or a lip gloss. This is Fruit Punch from Beauty. If you missed my, I think, collective haul where I talk about this, it smells like orange drink from McDonald's from the 90s, and I love it so much. Oh, and I feel totally refreshed. Now, at this point, if you're still not in love with the texture, but I think those tricks made it look pretty good in terms of applying additional coverage, I'm just going to go in with MAC Fix Plus to kind of, I should stop talking first, just to re-emulsify, not emulsify, but add a bit of emollients back, get things to kind of bind together, the layers that we made, put them together a little bit, and then we'll be right back. It also helps when you're dry to start layering hydration. We had the beginning layer of hydration, added our things on top, the tiniest bit of powder, and then hit it with some hydration again. And as this dries, it's all just going to come together once again. And not too shabby from my perspective. But I hope this was helpful. If you need to retouch and you have dry skin like me, make sure you're adding moisture, lightweight moisture in the form of sprays. Stick to the same consistency of product that you used before. If you're using heavy powders, I would stick to touching up with powders. If you're using liquids, stick with liquids, creams. If you are going to be wearing something for a long time and you want to be able to touch up without all of these products, I would say you want to stick to creams and be able to just use creams to touch up. You're not really setting with powder, but for me, I use kind of a hybrid situation and I have very dry skin. So it's important for me to add moisture back, use the same type of products, and very, very light powder. But yeah, I hope this is helpful. I hope you're having a great day. And I will hopefully see you in the next 2 that I'm about to film. Bye.